What's up, everyone? Welcome to Nesian News. Our mission is to connect and inspire our Islander community by sharing Islander success stories with everyone. So stay tuned for the full episode. This guy's a G. I met him a while back, and just running through some of his credentials: West Point grad, Army veteran, graduated from Cornell Tech, went on to start two successful tech companies that is involved in venture capital, private equity, and business brokerage. And he's doing all these things as a Samoan, which I think is sick. But as he's doing all these things, I think something that I respect him for is being an active father and husband. Because I've seen like a bunch of your posts on family trips and pickleball and egg businesses, which we'll get into. But just as we're going into this, I want to get to know you more. Where was home growing up for you, Ian?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me on, Dean. This is a really cool platform to really kind of bring Polynesians together. And I actually didn't grow up in very Polynesian centric locations all throughout my life. I was actually born in Germany, in Frankfurt, Germany. My dad was in the U.S. Army, so we were stationed out there. I was born in Germany. Went to German kindergarten all the way up until I was 5. German was kind of my language of choice outside of the home. Inside the home, it was English. And we moved to Texas from there, then to California while my dad was deployed, and went to Washington State. And then I ended up finishing high school out in South Korea.
Wow. How was that for you growing up, not really being surrounded by many other islanders or Polynesians?
Yeah, it's my parents both danced at the PCC, and so a lot of history and background in dancing. Polynesian dancing, is keeping like cultural ties through dancing, which was very critical for me, I think, growing up, because we were able to dance no matter where we were, even if we were the only Polynesians in the state. Or the country. It was always an opportunity. There was always an opportunity to dance and showcase our culture. So, it, as much as I wish I knew more Samoan, like I speak enough Samoan, or I understand enough Samoan to kind of float. But my conversational is so bad. And that's a lot of, I just didn't have enough people around me that were speaking Samoan. But it's kind of one of those ambitions later on in life. You make up for the things that you regret you didn't have when you were younger. I've moved to Utah now. So in Utah, plenty of Polynesians out here. So I'm making up for it. It's kind of fun to just be culturally around people that you look like, and you kind of have the same level of respect and cultural norms as those folks that understand you, and that's kind of a cool change up in my life these days.
Oh, that's awesome. And how has that Samoan upbringing, that Samoan culture, how has that helped you in your life, whether that's in business or raising your family or being a leader? How has that helped you?
Yeah, I think respect is number one, right? It's respect for the people around you, for your elders, and it really goes a long way in terms of character. It's one of those things that you can be known for, is this idea of this guy. He doesn't have to be so accommodating or nice to elders, but he does it anyways. And people look at that and like, it's different. It's different, and I've always appreciated that part of my culture. I've always appreciated the part of my culture that's related to family, bringing family together and making that priority. I think just, it speaks to character. It's a character trait that I think a lot of people may be lacking simply because they weren't grown up with it. It wasn't part of who they were and what their parents expected of them.
And now you're involved with all of these different projects that you got going on and businesses. So how do you find that balance and you're there for your kids and there for your wife and there for
Yeah,
all the people who need you?
man, balance is a tough thing for sure. I've got 4 different businesses that I run right now. And I got 5 kids and a lovely wife. And and an addiction to pickleball. So, balancing and all those things is tough. And it's, you just take it, I was in the army for about a decade, and I had this guy that was super big dude. And he was a special forces guy. And I remember, so we were in Afghanistan together. We were on a mission. I said, "Hey man, how'd you make it through like special forces qualification course, which is super hard, super tough. And like you're hiking, with big old heavy backpacks, rucksacks on for miles and miles. And so how do you do it? Because he just does not look like a special forces guy, right? He's just like decently overweight and but jolly as ever. And he said, "Here's the key, man. You just put one foot in front of the other, right? And that's it. That's how you make it through these things. Is you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. It's not about like being the fastest or being, the best at everything. It's really about endurance. It's really about being able to just continue to put one foot in front of the other and not take any steps backwards. So that's kind of how I look at balancing. It's never going to be perfect, but every day is one foot in front of the other. Every day is trying to do a little bit better and tweak this, that. Spending time at church. Every time I go to church, uh, it's like a mentoring session, or a therapy session in a way of like, "Hey, you should think about doing this." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I should think about doing that." Right. Like it's all about becoming a better father, becoming a better husband, and being better in your community. And church does that a lot for me. Every week, just telling me, try a little bit harder, do a little bit better, tweak this, tweak that.
Yeah, I don't want to go into more of that because I think for me and a lot of people who are listening to this right now, church is a huge part of our culture. It's like one of the biggest pillars in growing up. So how do you think? What are some other ways church has helped you in your journey through life?
I think I, yeah, just kind of having a spiritual connection to God, having a spiritual connection in general to universe and community. I think is important, very important. I think having the opportunity at least once a week to sit in somewhat of a meditative state and think about what's my purpose here, where am I going, am I on the right path, am I in the right direction, what is the meaning of this, what is the meaning of that, why do I do that, like questioning why I do things, because maybe that's not even important. And I think it's very crucial and critical for everybody to kind of figure that out and everything else will start to fall into place, because you'll be more centered. You'll have a different perspective that most people take on. Instead of just looking straight forward, you're looking around corners, you're looking around the environment, you're taking a view from a very high level. Like all that stuff improves your mental health, improves the way that you kind of take one in front of the other.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree with you when you mentioned how going to church is like a therapy session. I think when I go to church is because I'm big into philosophy, and so I get all these different epiphanies that get sparked up as I'm listening to a lot of what the people said. But that's something I completely agree with, and kind of a shift from that. You mentioned this how your addiction to pickleball, and I got to know more about this. Like, what's up with pickleball? Why is it so big? I
um,
remember when I first played, I just sucked at it. So what's up with that, and why do you love it so much?
it really is an easy sport to pick up. It's not like you have to spend years before you can like anybody will ever play with you. I grew up playing lots of sports. In high school, I was big into soccer, wrestling, volleyball. I got to college and I went all in on rugby. And you're a rugby player yourself. I just really enjoy the team aspect. I enjoy, hitting people, getting rid of a little bit of stress and getting hit, it's not a big deal. Getting hit is a good thing. I think just metaphorically getting hit and standing back up and going back at it, it's something that you build over time and it applies absolutely to business. So I grew up playing rugby, and then rugby did enough as well as army and beating up my body. So I'm at a point right now where, I got to find some lower impact sports and pickleball was just one of those. I bunch of friends, that are all athletic. We decided one day, let's go to Walmart, pick up some paddles, and let's play this sport because it's going to be our equalizer sport. It's going to be the one where we figure out who really is the most athletic because none of us have played pickleball before. And if you become the best at that, then, all right, amongst our friends group, that's the guy that really is athletic, right? So I don't know. That's where it started. It was fun. It was fun. And during the pandemic, it was great. Great camaraderie, great social sport. And it's just kind of turned into something that I really want to continue improving in. Golf. A lot of people do a lot of business in golf. I want pickleball to be that business sport.
Yeah. No, rugby is definitely it's high contact. If you're watching this on YouTube or on video, got the little bruise on the eye.
Get some rugby scars
It's
right
no
there.
joke. That's true. That's true. No, but I've seen that too. Is that a lot of business people doing golf? Because I was a caddy, and so being surrounded by all these people in golf, and I could totally see how pickleball could be the next golf. That'd be super
We'll
sick.
see. We'll see. I don't know. Golf, you definitely
Yeah,
have way more time to talk.
that's
Lots of
true. That's
time to
true.
talk.
Yeah, and another thing I wanted to get into is I saw this post on I think it was Instagram or LinkedIn how you were starting this egg business with your kids.
Yeah.
And so that's something I wanted to explore. Why did you start that and what did you learn from that experience?
I didn't start it. My son did, and this is like my ultimate goal as a father, right? I want my kids to understand what it takes to make money. Not necessarily from somebody giving you money like an employer, but how do you get other people, just normal everyday people, to give you money for something? So I actually do a thing with my kids. I put away something minimal every month for them ever since they're born. So ever since they're born, I have a certain direct deposit going into a bank account for them every month. And when they turn 14, I give it to them. And I think 14 is a good age because it gives them essentially 4 years to use that money to make more money. And it's underneath my tutelage, right? They're under my home still, and they can ask me any questions about that. I'm thinking about investing in this, or I'm thinking about starting this up. Um, but I essentially tell them, hey, here's your money. I'm not going to give you any money for college. I'm not going to give you any money for, your wedding, whatever. Um, but here's your money and you make what you want with it. So my son, he's 15 years old now. He's tried, investing in cryptocurrencies, investing in stocks, mutual funds. He's tried to start some other businesses that have failed. But we have chickens. We moved to a place in northern Utah with some land, so we have like 15 chickens out there, and it's been his job to feed them, take care of them. Him and my other son, my 10-year-old son, they kind of both take care of the chickens. My 10-year-old son has built kind of a clientele of people that he delivers eggs to. But my son, after seeing, so in Hawaii, you got a bunch of fruit stands. These fruit stands are, fresh fruit, papaya, bananas, whatnot, pineapple, in a stand in front of people's houses. And you kind of just drive by, take some stuff, pay with cash or Venmo or whatever. And he's like, man, this would be cool if we could do this in our town. We live in a really small town. We live on Main Street, so everybody drives by our house. So for about a month, he was out there just building this thing. Came up with his own plans, designed it, constructed it, and didn't even want to show my wife and I what it was. Like, he just wanted this to be his. And he's put it out there now, and it sits in front of our house, and people stop by all the time, pick up a carton of eggs on the way home. It's been really cool, a really cool experience. I think even from, creating a Venmo account that they can Venmo, I think all that stuff is important about, not only just having a product, but what are the logistics of getting money from people, and how do you make it easier for them? And how do you, he's got a little questionnaire in there that says, hey, give me any feedback. What would you like to see? So he's really trying to test the audience or his customer base and say, how do I make this service better for you? So I love it. I love it. I'm all about it.
Dude, that is awesome. Seriously, where did that idea even come from?
I mean, he's tried a bunch of different stuff of, trying to start up businesses, but this is just super practical, super easy. I mean, when you think about needs versus wants, like a lot, I mean, you need food. And he tried to start a business where he's selling like keyboards and mice and stuff like that for gaming. Try to buy wholesale from China and then like bring it in and brand it and like make his own website. I thought it was cool. But that's definitely a want and not a need. You need some food. And eggs are one of those staples. And so, you find what people want and you build a business around it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome that you're teaching your kids that type of those types of principles, because at least for me growing up, I never was able to find that. And so, well, what do you think is your biggest advice to other parents out there, how they can try to instill those principles into their kids as they're raising them in the culture?
Yeah, I think my kids are, getting closer and closer to college age. And recently I was at I just took my kids to a college camp. I went to Harvard. I went to MIT. I took them to those campuses. I tried to find kids that were students that were walking around and asked them, why or how did you get here? What what did you have to do to be able to get into Harvard or MIT? And they were talking a lot about the extracurriculars. They were talking about like, hey, good grades is like the baseline. You need that. That's table stakes. If you don't have good grades or good test scores, like you just can't even be in the conversation. But what sets you apart is what you do on the side. What's your side hobbies? What's your passion? So I would say like my advice to parents out there is come up with passions or help them find some passions. The other thing that you want to instill in your kids, I want to instill in my kids, is this ideal of failure, right? I don't think we give our kids enough opportunities to fail, and they need to fail. They need to fail multiple times while they're still under your house, under your roof. They need to look at failure as, okay, I learned this. I need to figure out next time, what am I going to do better? Right. If we continue to give them successes, if we continue to let them just win, win, win all the way through high school, you know, they're going to get to college thinking they're always going to win. And then when they graduate, they think they're going to continue to win. But where do you learn the most? You learn it in those failures. So if you're not giving them opportunities and really pushing them on the boundaries of comfort to have the ability to fail, I don't think they're growing they're not growing in character. They're not growing in skill sets. They're not growing in mentality, without failure.
That's a great insight. And looking back at your life, how has failure set you up for later success? And do you have a favorite failure that you've had?
Oh man. I left the army and went straight into tech. I didn't know anything about tech. And I went out there and tried to raise money. I never knew that you could actually ask people for money and they give it to you. But I learned all this stuff along the way. Um, Gosh, what failures? In the army, I failed multiple times. In the army, I was an intelligence officer that one thing was going to happen and the total opposite happened. And I'd look at it as, gosh, maybe I shouldn't be so so dogmatic about what I say. Maybe I shouldn't say, hey, this is going to happen. It's absolutely going to happen. Maybe I should find a middle ground of, possibilities. And, so I learned so much from getting things wrong, in the intelligence space, about the way that I communicate, the way that I push ideas with people, and really give the opportunity for me to be wrong, in there. Right. So I think displaying a little bit of vulnerability around, hey, there is a possibility I'm wrong. There is a possibility that things could go a totally different direction. So I think two things I've learned from getting things wrong in the military as a military intelligence officer whose job it is to tell the future. one, I learned a lot about vulnerability, and I've learned a lot about, if you don't try to just fake it always, but really come into the situation saying, I'm new. I don't know everything, but I put a lot of work into this assessment. This is what I think is going to happen. I think people will rally around you and not necessarily, at least in my case, pile on you as like, oh, this guy's amateur. But really kind of stand behind you and say, well, let's give you a little bit of grace and let's go off of what you got. And we know you're going to be right here if it's wrong, telling us, how to adjust and how to shift. So I think that for one has been a lesson from getting things wrong is just be a little bit vulnerable. It's not the end of the world to be vulnerable. And yeah, I think just coming out into the civilian world and not knowing anything but tech, being very vulnerable in that space, telling people, I was selling. My first company was it was somewhat in the cybersecurity space. It was open source technologies, which is code that you can find on the internet and put it into applications and websites. That was my industry. That was the space that I was building a business in. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was speaking with people that were, PhDs in technology development that they were like, this guy, what is he talking about? But I don't mind being vulnerable. I don't mind pushing myself out there and saying, I'm going to solve your problem. I may not understand your problem fully, but I'm going to figure it out by the end of this conversation, what your problem is, and know that I'm a problem solver. It doesn't matter if I don't know what it is. I'll let you know that I don't know everything, but I will solve your problems.
Diving deeper more into that failure aspect, is there a time where you almost lost it on? And if you did, what did you learn from it?
Almost lost it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that first company, man, it was tough. It was rough. We were early to the market. There was a lot of people that understood vulnerabilities in open source technology. And there were way more people that didn't. Right. So there were this finite group of people that said, hey, there are vulnerabilities and dangers in open source technology. And I acknowledge that, but nobody else cares about it. So I'm not going to really focus my efforts on it. That was a struggle for us because we saw the problem. It was glaring. But we were way too early to the market. Like we were building something for a market that hadn't developed yet. And we were now realizing that we're going to have to tread water and wait for the market to catch up. We had to wait for people to say, oh, this is a big priority of ours. Oh, great. You have a solution. Like, let's buy your solution. So we were building it a little bit prematurely. And there were moments there where, you start to see your bank account get low. Yeah. All these people that are depending on you to put food on the table for their families, your employees. And I found myself staring at the wall multiple times, just staring at a blank wall. And for, half an hour, I'm just like, my body's breaking down. My mind's breaking down. I'm trying to figure out like, is this survivable? Can we make this happen? Can we do this? Like I have a tendency to always feel like I can do everything. But this is a true moment of, you know, almost failure, like the brink of failure that I had to like snap out of somehow, some way. Being an entrepreneur, it's very lonely at the top, very lonely, because you can't share truth, true, authentic, like emotions with anybody. You can't share it with your employees. Your employees will start to freak out. You can't necessarily share it with your investors because your investors will be like, "Oh, I made a bad investment." You can't necessarily share it with, your spouse because your spouse is like, why were we doing this anyways? You could go get a good job. Right. So like, it is kind of lonely at the top, because you just can't share your true emotions with a lot of people. So anyways, I broke out of that funk. We were able to have a successful acquisition of the company, by a much bigger software firm. And have a successful result in the end. So there's been downs, there's been emotional downs. And sometimes you just got to, again, put one foot in front of the other and say, it's going to work out. We got this. Mental fortitude and grit is absolutely necessary. Um, but yeah, worked out in the end, luckily.
I think a lot of the times we find ourselves in those failures, in those downs where we're kind of confused. We don't know what we're doing. And it always comes back to this question of why? Why do you do these things that you want to go out and do? And so for you, what is your why? What motivates you to get up in the morning and accomplish all the goals that you have for yourself?
The longer I've gone in kind of an entrepreneurial journey, building out companies, the more I realize that the thing I like the most and enjoy the most is people. I enjoy people. I enjoy building organizations around people and getting things working in such a way that people are like excited to be there. They want to be there. They're passionate about what we're selling, what we're doing, service we're providing. All that stuff is so much better when you have this environment and culture of people. So that's one thing that really motivates me when I'm not doing necessarily great personally. I will kind of lean on my people and like, even just putting together a meeting where I see everybody's faces is like, oh man, this is why we're doing this. Like we are doing this together. And it drives me. I think other passions obviously are my family. You get to middle age, and you realize that it's all about the kids. It's am I being a role model to my own children? Do they see me and say, well, dad works really hard. I should work really hard. And I never want them or my wife to feel like, hey, we're in a bad situation here. And for those reasons, I think about mitigating risk always, right? So how do we increase the likelihood of success? And to me, it's always been about multiple channels, multiple businesses, multiple streams of income, investment, passive income, like all those like ways of mitigating any risk of total and utter failure is what I'm pushing at the moment. There will be a moment in the future where I'm like, okay, I did it. Got it. All these streams of income are coming in. Like the risk of one stream of income failing and taking down my entire livelihood is so minimal that I can kind of sit in relative peace.
With having all these different streams of income, what is it about the work? And you mentioned this, how you're obsessed with the people. What is it about your work that brings you alive?
What's it about my work that brings me alive?
Yeah.
Makes me feel like I have a lot of like I'm all about energy. I like good energy. I like positive energy. I don't like draining energy. So if I can build a company around something that I can feel great positive energy from, like that's what I'm going to do. If I'm going down a route because there's good money, but there's a lot of negative energy involved in it, meaning it's, either people are bad, people have bad intentions, or it's something that I just feel has no purpose or um, no real value to anybody around me. Like I'm not going to sell it. I'm not going to be a part of it. It's not going to be what I do. So when I seek out new business ventures, it's all about what's the energy that it brings to me. I recently started a video production firm with guys that I've worked with in the past, and these guys that I've worked with in the past, reached out to me and said, "Hey, could we do more work together? Like I need some help. I need, I've been out on the job search for a while, and I can't seem to land my full time gig. I would love more work." So I said, all right, let's do it, man. Like, it's not only that I think it's a profitable business and that we can do stuff for clients that are always asking me for work or asking me to do stuff for them, but I can give you a job, somebody that I feel is a great person, but it's just, kind of stuck in this job search circle. To me, it feels great from a purpose standpoint that we're helping everybody out here. and it makes profit in the end, but it's a good business that makes me feel good.
It's awesome. And the final question that I always want to ask every single person that I have on the show is, if you could put up a sign, and this sign goes on every single Polynesian Pacific Islander person, it goes in front of their door of their home, and they would see this sign every day. Millions and millions of people all around the world, they see the sign. What would it say, and why?
My family has a number of mottos, family mottos, and I'm putting them on big old canvases in our house, and it's going to essentially be the sign that sits in front of the house, but it's going to be in our house on a big canvas. And one of those mottos is "Why not me?" And I think that's what I would put on the sign. We have to switch a mentality in our own minds around thinking that we are fixed into a certain destiny, or our culture restricts us from thinking this way because it's too palagi, right? It's too Americanized, or that's just not our culture. I think, as I look at all the great people that are doing great things around the world, I don't look from afar. I don't look as a spectator and say, man, that person can do that. And I can't. My boys all know that if somebody has done it before, they can do it too. Why not me? And that's the mentality that they should be living with. All Polynesians everywhere. They should be thinking, this guy built a $1 billion business, and really just, killed it, came from nothing, did something amazing. Why not me? Why can't I do that? Right. So that's the mentality I think everybody needs to run forward with. I was constantly been doing things that I wasn't supposed to do. I grew up in the military, not really understanding how to be an entrepreneur. Became an entrepreneur anyways. From Polynesian descent, which very likely puts me in this box of an athlete, but not a business person. And I'd love for everyone to believe that they could do not only great in athletics, but great all around. Any part of the economy, any part of society, whether it's politics, business, why not me? There's no reason why not. Absolutely no reason why not you.
I love that. I love that so much, and I completely agree. If someone who's listening to the show, they want to connect with you, Ian, how can they find you and support what you're doing?
Yeah. I run a private equity fund now. It's TOA Acquisitions. Hit me up at ian@toaacquisitions.com. You can also follow me on Instagram. Find me Ian Folau, and LinkedIn, of course. LinkedIn, I put a lot of content out there on LinkedIn. So follow me on Ian Folau on LinkedIn. Connect with me. Open for any opportunity to help anybody else out there.
That's awesome, man. We haven't even touched on TOA, which we'll have to have you again on the show to talk more about that in the future. But man, thank you so much, Ian, for coming on and sharing your story. And I hope someone listening out there found some value in what he was saying. And so, if you did, definitely subscribe and keep following the show, because I think as more people join the community and as we come together, I think this can be something big. And I hope we'll have cool people like you, Ian, to come on the show and share their stories. But
Hey,
thank you so
thanks
much.
so much for having me on, Dean. You're awesome.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Hey, you made it. Thanks for listening to this Islander success story. If you want more of these, head over to Nesian.news. Sign up for our newsletter. We'll send you an email every single time we put an Islander success story out there. And remember, our mission is to connect and inspire Islanders around the world.